Thank you, Christy. Hi, everyone. So my name is Aina. I'll be teaching foreigner Kazakh this semester. So country Kazakhstan. So it's well known as a NIS country or CIS, newly independent state, or it's among the one of the countries of Commonwealth of independent states. So it's situated in Central Asia. It's not even Central Asia, it's between Russia and China. So, and it has a very nice location, but we have we recently renamed our capital name from Astana to Nur Sultan. So, and the population is reaching 19 million, which is very small population, but very highly talented population, because literacy rate is 99%. And the average age of Kazakhstan is 30 years old. So a lot of young people, young professionals. And in terms of the land, it's a vast territory. It's ninth biggest territory, but one unfortunate thing is it's the biggest landlocked country. So two languages are very popular, and we use it as a both state and as a language of communication. They are Kazakh and Russian. So Russian is a legacy of the USSR. We've been under the USSR leadership for 70 years. So we have, since we are a big country, we have 2 time zones. So, and we are ahead of DC, 11 hours, I think. Yeah, so our capital is 11 hours ahead of DC. So our president, he has been the president, I think, for 30 years. So I was a elementary school student. So he stepped down in 2019. Now we have a new president. So the major cities are Almaty, Shymkent, and Karaganda. Almaty actually, so, you know, Kazakhstan is very famous for its apples. So the name Almaty, it used to be our capital. So Almaty comes from Alma, it's apple. So it's there is even a book written by an American writer, Robbins. Apples are from Kazakhstan. So literally Almaty means the city of apples, or city of apple trees. So this location is very convenient, because in 5 hours you are in Istanbul, and it takes you 3 hours to be in Delhi in India. So to Central Europe, you can take a flight and you'll be in 6 hours. So the most important thing is Central Asian Regional United States Agency for International Development, USAID, based in Almaty. So, and it coordinates the issues of all 5 Central Asian countries. And the Kazakhstan, or Almaty, is the only Central Asian country that has its own US consulate general. Other Central Asian countries, they don't have a consulate general of the US, just embassies. So economy, in terms of economy, it attracts a lot of money. As you can see, it's and its main investors are US, UK, Russia, China, and it's basically oil-based, oil and gas-based country. And the country is the biggest uranium producer. And the national currency is tenge, which is 1 tenge is approximately 418 tenge. And foreign policy, we since we are neighbor to China, to Russia, we conduct a very cautious foreign policy. It's called multi-vector diplomacy. And recently, the Kazakh Agency for International Development, it's it's similar to USAID actually, but it's a new one. So it's founded to promote Kazakh soft power and presence abroad. And we also, yeah, we are very well known for our, Kazakhstan was a mediator in the Syrian talks in 2016, and in 2013 it was Kazakhstan was a mediator between Iran and P5+1 countries. And if you would like to know more about Kazakhstan, you can read the book Apples from Kazakhstan, or go to these websites, weproject.com, and arts and museums. Our major philosopher, composer, and poet is Abay. His major book is very well-known book is called The Book of Words. I would like to suggest you to go through, or just to get interested in this if you're interested visiting this country. And food, basically, besh parmak, it means besh, it's 5 hands. It used to be eaten with the besh with 5 fingers, but nowadays, of course, people use spoons. So and then other Central Asian food like plov, noodle soup, mante, orama, they're all well known. And you wouldn't be missing US if once you are in Kazakhstan, because we have Starbucks located in 22 locations in Almaty, in 9 in Nur-Sultan. So Uber application, KFC, Burger King, McDonald's, Hardee's, you'd enjoy these things. And of course, a lot of American companies function in the in Kazakhstan, like Chevron, Chevroil. So it's a lot of so some fun facts about the language. So we think, yes, Russian is a well-known, widely known, very beautiful language. But even Russian language borrowed some words from Kazakh, or in any ways like Turkic, because Kazakh is a Turkic, it belongs to a Turkic group of languages. So tenge, our currency, so Russian word for money, dengi, it comes from Turkic word tenge. Even the Russian word kazna, it comes from the Kazakh word kazna, or Turkish word hazine. So it's just fun facts about the language. And recently, US citizens are able to visit Kazakhstan actually without any visa for up to 30 days. So it's something new, I think. Another fun fact is, since we're neighbor to China, buses from Almaty to Urumqi, I think it's a Xinjiang part, like a northwest part of China. So the buses run every day, except for weekends, and it takes you just 24 hours to be there. And it's so yeah. So I mentioned about apples. Yeah. So Almaty, both Almaty and Nur-Sultan are very cosmopolitan. A lot of people speak English. So yeah, I think this is it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we want? Thank you for sharing, and it's been really great hearing from you. And also, I didn't know about all the types of businesses that you can visit when you visit Kazakhstan. It's definitely on my list to hopefully see when we're outside of the pandemic, as is Ethiopia as well. I will go ahead and let Jonathan get started. Jonathan Chow. Yeah, so thank you, Jonathan, for being here, and especially with some recent changes in your schedule. We are appreciative. Just so you know, Jonathan has taught with GLN since summer of 2018. He's been with GLN about as long as I have, so I've known him for several years. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, great.
Hi, thank you everyone. My name is Jonathan Xiao and I am a Mandarin teacher for GLN. As Krista said, I've been teaching since 2018. Love the organization. Next. I am a Taiwanese immigrant, so I've been speaking Mandarin since I was a wee baby, and I came to the United States when I was 11 and managed to retain my fluency somehow through a variety of employment opportunities. Next. I've been a social worker. I've been an intern that I'm going to talk a little bit about in Taiwan. Right now, I am an immigration lawyer. I do a lot of asylum law, business immigration, criminal defense in the immigration context. So when Andrew mentioned earlier that if anybody touches on international affairs, I suppose this is my way of dealing with international affairs. Next. I am not an international affairs expert with that said. So I realize that because I am a Mandarin teacher and y'all are very interested in China, that you might want to ask some political questions about these things. Just want to clarify them at this point. I'm happy to help, but just understand that there's limits to my knowledge. Next. Sorry, I should have made this easier for you, Ryan. I've been next. I joined the GLN organization because I wanted to refresh my fluency in Mandarin. I have not used it in a while, and I think that being a teacher is a great way to relearn some of those things myself. I mainly teach the nearly native level, and my students tend to be people who already have a certain degree of fluency conversing in Mandarin. So their interests really are like mine. Just wanting to maintain their fluency so that they can apply this language skill to their jobs whenever the opportunity comes up. For my part, in addition to helping my students maintain fluency, I want them to gain a broader knowledge of China, to gain a deeper appreciation of the mindsets, let's say, of the Chinese people and maybe the Chinese government. So to that end, I like to talk a lot with my students about various topics of China, culture, including food, film, television, music, popular music, traditional music. I think we covered calligraphy at one point. I am not a calligraphy expert, but I did my research and try to introduce whatever I know to my students and just to see what they think. When we do talk about these topics, I tend to open the conversation up to my students and let them share their opinions with me and their classmates. The purpose is not so much to judge whether or not they have the right opinion or it's well-founded or anything. I just want them to be able to converse complicated ideas on specific topics of China in order to get their brain engaged in using the language in more complicated ways. I wanted to skip that last bullet point. Teaching at home has been a challenge, but I don't think we have the time to really get into it. So next slide, please. All right, very good. Thank you very much. So why do you want to learn Chinese? I don't want to insult everybody here by talking about how important Chinese is going to be in the next few decades. There's certainly a practical use for it. If you know some basic conversations, you can maybe gain an edge over people who can't converse in Mandarin with the Chinese people. But I want to tell you the story of C.C. Chen. He was very briefly my supervisor at the Taiwanese Office of Trade Negotiation. So when I was a law student, I spent a couple of months as a summer intern working there. If you don't know what that is, it's basically the counterpart to the USTR. It deals mainly with bilateral trade negotiations between Taiwan and potential trade partners. I can tell you that at the time that I was there, they were about to conclude a trade agreement with New Zealand and building that up to other agreements with other partner states. But C.C. Chen was supposed to be my boss. And although I don't speak with him often, he was clearly head and shoulders above his peers. And that was apparent from this conversation. I was asking him, why do you bother reading the newspapers in the United States? Because you can just get that information from the newspapers in Taiwan. Not to mention, this is not your language. Well, you could understand more details if you can read it in Mandarin, in Chinese. And he told me that in order to gauge the mindset of the American people, in order to understand truly how the United States trade stance is formulated, he needs to read New York Times, Washington Post, and any other major publication to understand how he can best approach his negotiations with the United States. And I suppose the same is true with other partner states. C.C. Chen is now, he was a negotiator then at the Office of Trade Negotiation. He is now the Deputy Minister of Economic Affairs in Taiwan. And it's no surprise why, because his mindset is just different from his peers. I think that there's an important lesson for you all who are interested in going to international diplomacy. It's all well and good to be able to read newspapers and converse with the Chinese people and talk about casual subjects, but I think there's a deeper layer to every language. If you achieve a certain fluency in Mandarin, you can start reading between the lines. You can start gauging the deeper meanings behind the media that Chinese people consume. Obviously, you can read the state media and kind of see how the Chinese government is trying to express certain messages. You can read contemporary literature like the Great Qin Empire and understand how the Chinese people equate themselves to the Qin state and perhaps the United States to the once powerful Wei states, who was at that time declining during those eras. You can understand the difference between the school of horizontal and vertical, when eventually the international community will start talking about aligning themselves in some ways economically against China, and when you might start thinking that that could be an allegory or a callback to the school of the vertical, and so on and so forth. You can also watch TV shows like the Round Table Pie and see how the intellectuals in China converse with one another about various nuanced topics such as, guanxi, relationship, or mianzi, face. These are the benefits in truly understanding and mastering this language. And I think with so many people interested in learning Mandarin, the more you know, the more advantages you will have. Next slide, please. So if you're interested in learning Mandarin, there's just some things that you have to go through. Characters and tone are obvious challenges, but I think actually once you get over these particulars, Chinese is actually grammatically very simple. There's no conjugations. You don't have to worry about genders. You don't have to worry about tenses. I still mess up tenses. I still mess up plurality after speaking English for so long. You will have none of those issues with Chinese Mandarin. Supposing, of course, you can overcome the challenges of memorizing its characters and pulling yourself away from relying on tone to convey, tone. Next slide. So I just want to re-emphasize that I'm not an international affairs expert, but I'm happy to help. So if you have any questions for me at the end of this, I would be glad to answer them to the best of my ability. So, 谢谢.
Okay, well, thank you so very much. We'll go ahead and now we'll go into Amharic with Befekadu. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. My name is Befekadu Hapchayes, so I'm going to say something about the Ethiopian language, Amharic. I just started to volunteer in JLN, which is a very interesting platform to learn about the culture and tradition and language of international people or the community, just to create another, citizenship, like by coming together. So it's very interesting, and I'm happy or honored to get this opportunity. So coming to my presentation, Ethiopia is located in East Africa, and this language is spoken. We have more than 18 languages spoken in the country with 200 dialects, and Amharic is one of the major languages spoken. It is a working language. Sometimes the regions also choose the language they want, and so learning the language helps you to know the diverse and beautiful people Next slide, please. We have in the country many of them who speak their second language, so they are multilingual, and it is where one way, just language is one way of learning the diverse and beautiful culture we have. And according to the 2007 census, the Ethiopian population was 74 million, but nowadays it is more than 114 million population. So with that 80 ethnic groups, so you'll see diverse culture and tradition from north to south of the country whenever you travel there. Next slide. Language is also the one which embeds a very amazing culture, food, the coffee ceremony, and the different heritages we have. And as Anna mentioned, for example, Ethiopian food is eaten by bare hand, and that's wide plate with which we call it injera. So if you don't get a chance to taste, you need to just see that the most delicious meal ever. And the coffee ceremony is even more than the coffee taste itself. It is the most important noun for coffee. And the ceremony by itself is one that how Ethiopians also socialize and enjoy life together. That's how you see it. When you come to also the heritage, there are more than 13 UNESCO registered heritage. Out of them, 4 of them are intangible heritage. These are the one who will attract international community for tourism, like the Mescal, which is a true the finding of the true cross. It's an annual celebration out of door. It's a big ceremony. Timkat is Ethiopian ceremony. It's a baptism of Jesus Christ. And Recha is a Oromo social cultural reflection. It is of the Gada system in one of the most spoken language in Ethiopia, the Oromifa language. It is one of the most populous ethnic group also. You can also see Fiche Chambalala. It is a Sidama New Year celebration. So there are many reasons to learn about the Ethiopian. Next slide. If you also see, learning the language will help you also to learn the very precious history. It embeds, for example, one of the story that Ethiopia is the origin of human being, or the cradle of humankind. You know, Lucy, we call it Dinkanesh. It means you are marvelous. So 1.8 million years old fossil is located in Ethiopia. And we have, Ethiopia is also the only African nation not colonized. And we have also different heritage, like the Book of Enoch. The original copy is located only in Ethiopia. It was lost and it was located in Ethiopia. And there are most ancient civilizations and religions like Christianity and Islam, because Islam is, for example, Ethiopia is the first foreign country to accept Islam even before Hijrah. So you will be amazed to learn that the interconnectedness or harmony of Christian and Muslim living together, how culturally and in every aspect they are linked together. And if you see also, Ethiopia is a land of extremes where you see the highest and the lowest in the world. It is 216 below sea level. And so you see the hottest living magma, and the highest 440,000 meter above sea level. Beautiful mountain. That's why Ethiopia is called the roof or the water tower of Africa. And so you'll see these all extremities. And the other is a predecessor of Amharic, and it is a language of literature, and the Amharic is a language of speech. So the next slide, you can see it is origin is from the Semitic language families, and you'll see some similarities between Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, and Tigray. Next slide. And Ethiopia has its own alphabet, this Amharic, like 33 with 33 consonants and 7 vowels. and I will say them attachments, because to get the different sounds of the vowels, it's not a different letter, but an attachment to the consonants to make it more sound like the vowels. Next slide. You can see here, for example, as an illustration, you can say ha, H-A, you sound ha, and the 7 families horizontally and the 33 letters vertically. So this is how the alphabet is constituted. Next slide. There is also unique numbers, and these unique numbers also led us to have the unique calendars. The next slide of Ethiopia. Even the calendar is different, which there are amazing mathematical time tracking method called, we call it Bahar Hasab, or in Arabic it is called Abu Shahar, and it is called Zaman Akodadar. It generates 12 months of 30 days and 5 or 6 epigomenal days. It will be 6 every 4 years. So, which makes Ethiopia the 13 months of sunshine. And everyone visiting also Ethiopia will be 8 years younger than their age, like, because in Ethiopia now, it is 2013, and it is 2020 now here. Next slide. So learning the languages also helps you know about those institutions in the capital city of Ethiopia, like African Union. It's the founder of African Union. And Ethiopia is also Economic Commission of Africa, Ethiopian Airlines, the most successful airlines in Africa. And there are more than 109 embassies, and various NGOs are also located there. And the beautiful weather and the fast-growing economy and open investment also is attracting many people there. So learning the language makes it very important to be there and be successful in the area. Next slide. So if you can't get the chance to visit Ethiopia, it doesn't mean you don't have to learn the language, but learning the language will help you also to hang out with Ethiopian colleagues here in the US. We call them the Ethiopian Diaspora. So learning the language helps you to learn the people, to know about the people, the culture, the history, and many more. So learning the Amharic language also helps to easily communicate and optimize the contribution of many people living here in US or in the world. And moreover, learning any other's language to each other helps us come together, and also makes us make us to make the world a better place to live. As a mission for JLN, I want to thank JLN to have this mission and also creating opportunity to learn the language. Thanks so much. አመሰግናለሁ።
Okay, thank you. I did want to ask you a question about how Amharic is spoken in Ethiopia. So we know that there are many different communities, ethnic groups, tribes, and that there are a lot of political events that are going on in Ethiopia that are having an impact on the society. How is the what role does the language play in the society as far as how widely it's spoken among the people? Like if someone were to travel, say outside of Addis into some of the different regions in Ethiopia, how would Amharic help them, you know, in particular, maybe in different parts of the country? And do you think there's any changes in how people are learning Amharic versus other tribal languages maybe in the country? That's a question I had.
Thank you for your interesting question. Yeah, it's learning Amharic helps you to live easily there, because it is officially the working language, so everyone speaks Amharic. That's why I say, like, most of them are multilingual, like they can speak. their local language as well as Amharic as official working language. So it is simple or easy to communicate with everyone, and being like, but language being recently as a political tool, I think Ethiopia is the only country being administered by ethnic federalism. So each regions will operate by their local language, but everybody will speak Amharic as a second language. So it is not difficult to communicate and travel everywhere in Ethiopia by learning the Amharic language.
Great, thank you. It sounds like a little bit like Bahasa, Indonesia, for example, where it can help you to navigate many different parts of the country that speak many different languages. So thank you. Thanks for that. So Ivan, we can now go on to Janjan. Do you want to start your presentation?
Sure, I see Lajja's on the screen though.
Yeah, Lajja is next. And then
Oh, Lajja is next. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
Of
it's
course. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, we'll start with Lajja, of course. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Hello, my name is Lajja Desai. Okay, never mind. Well, my name is Lajja Desai. Unfortunately, I wish I said I would have had many other slides that I could have had for you, but in my case, it's only this one. And I will actually be teaching the Indian languages of Hindi and Gujarati at GLN this semester, which I'm quite excited for. And for those who do know, Hindi is a one of the national languages of India, one of the 26 national languages of India. And then Gujarati is a regional language. There's a state in India called Gujarat, where my parents are originally from. And considering this, I've been thankfully been fluent in Gujarati, Hindi, and very obviously English. And so I'm just here to share a few facts about India and then pepper in some points about Gujarati just the same. So India's capital is New Delhi. Its population is at 1.3 billion and some change. And as I said, the national language, Hindi, amongst one of 26 and thousands of dialects branching off of that. Originally, very originally, ancient Sanskrit is considered to be the stem of the language family of Hindi, and currently for India, the Prime Minister is Narendra Modi, and the President is Ramnath Kovind, and our national currency is the rupee. And some fun facts about Hindi is that Hindi is actually the language that is spoken, and then its script or text is called Devanagari script. And Gujarati has its own alphabet as well, but Devanagari script has 47 letters, of which is 11 vowels and 36 consonants. And just as Befekadu had brought up earlier, many parts of English do not articulate just the same as much as Hindi. And Hindi, amongst many other Indian languages, is one of those that utilize every single part of the articulation that a human can make phonetically. And so one very nice point about Hindi is that should you learn Hindi, you will utilize every single point of vocalization, which will easily allow you to understand and comprehend learning many other languages. So a great gateway language, at least at that point. And more traditionally even, actually Hindi is considered to be a second or third language for many people as they learn their regional and ethnic languages first, and then Hindi. And consequently, so many people learn Hindi, and that's how we understand Hindi to be one of the main languages of India. So of many things that a lot of people know of India, if they don't know anything at all, is the food. And the food of India is actually, as most people know, that nearly 80% of the Indian population is vegetarian in the common understanding of vegetarianism. And when we go to Indian restaurants here, especially in America, there's always a concept of like heavy, super flavorful, super spicy food. And actually Indian food is actually incredibly balanced. What is eaten on a regular basis and every day. According to the ancient lifestyle practice of Ayurveda, it has a holistic well-being that many other cuisines would have a seasonal turnabout. Actually, it is on the daily turnabout in the Indian diet. So that makes up very much for what most people consider to be lacking from being vegetarians. Another thing that a lot of people catch, especially from Gujarati, if I can revert, is that Gujarati, people who are ethnically Gujarati are incredibly entrepreneurial. And so even if there is the concept of wherever in the world there is business to be done, there will be a Gujarati person to do it. And so Gujarati, even though most people who are Gujarati speak also Hindi and also English, it'd just be another benefit to have to, as Christy had brought up earlier about international business, just a side point for that for her. And should there be any questions about the Global Language Network, and that Krista would answer for that. But I would say, thankfully, considering I'm the only, I believe the only Hindi and Gujarati, and for sure the Gujarati teacher of GLN, many other questions that come along in those ways, I'd be happy to answer.
Yes, you are. This is the first time since I've been here that we've had Gujarati. I was just going to say that, with 62 million speakers of Gujarati, it's more, than some countries, like quite a few countries that, in terms of the number of speakers of the language. Would you want to share about like the role that that learning a more regional variation or regional language in India might have? What's the impact, like, especially say whether someone's traveling or whether someone is, being sent there for a diplomatic purpose or, some other capacity. How would speaking, of course, how does speaking Hindi help, but then also, how does maybe speaking one of the many languages that are spoken regionally in India maybe have an impact on someone's experience, and what that would mean also to cultures or communities there as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Of course. So I'm very glad that you brought that up. And so to tie in for the YPIA concept of global affairs and whatnot. So as I had mentioned, New Delhi is the capital of India. And so where it is situated is in the northern half of India, which Hindi is the predominant language there, as much as English, I could actually say. But India, in the way that it is segmented in state-wise, each state can be more or less be understood that each state has each language to itself. And so like I brought up about my parents being from the state of Gujarat, and they speak Gujarati, within which has its own dialects and accents and whatnot, but specifically speaks Gujarati. And the very neighboring state has a completely other language with its own phonetics and its own script and whatnot. So with Hindi, and I would also like to mention there's one other language, which is Tamil, which is from the southern half of India, which would be very, I would say, not necessarily crucial, but important, just the same as Hindi in the understanding of what a person who is traveling or by work or whatnot, by profession, would need to take into look into. And even the concept of, as I had brought up about how, even I don't want to say like historic, just like the concept of how most people don't grasp that it's such an ancient concept of language in India. It very much changes most mindsets of thinking and understanding and comprehending on its head. So many examples most examples that come through in my mind is that in the Western mindset, there's always the understanding that the direction forward is forward this way and backwards is backwards this way behind us. But and those who have not necessarily been all too much influenced in the Western mindset that with colonial history that India has, but very originally the understanding is that forward is forward, but backwards is through the person, and not with the understanding that a single individual holds as much as importance as a universal importance does. So that's a quick tidbit that one can very easily catch once they start learning any language of India, but in this case, Hindi or Gujarati.
That's really, really cool. Thank you. So now we'll go on to Jamden. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, hi guys. Thank you so much for having me here. It is an honor. Thank you to GLN for being part of this, and also the institute that's hosting this. So I'm Janjan, and I was born and raised in Northern Virginia here. And I'm born to immigrant Kachin parents from Northern Burma and like Central Burma. So yeah, I'll just be continuing next with the slide. So where in the world is Burma? It's like pretty much right next to Lajja's country, India. It was also a British colony. So just wanted to situate us all. And when I'm talking about Kachin people today, I'll be talking about Jingpo people. Kachin is actually a blanket term for 6 different tribes: Jingpo, Lisu, Zaiwa, Lauvo, and Ruang and Lachik. So yeah, the main thing I'll be talking about is Jingpo. There also tends to be confusion about this, but I believe that there should be equal representation for all the other tribes. And yeah, on the topic of speaking of Kachin people, this is a little quote. The word Kachins or Kachin is derived from Ga Kyang or soil or red soil, which was written as Ka Kyang by earlier authors, colonialists, like people from back then, including Dr. Kincaid in 1837, simplified by the American and the British officers in the colonial period. So this word Ga Kyang is actually a Jingpo word for red soil, and it's just interesting to see how it evolved over time to become Kachin later on. Yeah, and for the language, so our Kachin language is described to be like part of the Tibeto-Burman linguistic family, so it belongs to that. And many languages in this Tibeto-Burman linguistic family are actually not closely related to each other, so they're very different. Even amongst the 6 tribes I mentioned that belong in the Kachin, family, they're actually not mutually intelligible. So if you understand Jingpo, you actually won't really understand the other ones. Maybe you might a little, but it's a completely different language. And the written language for Kachin, for Jingpo, was actually non-existent until Dr. Ola Hansen, a Swedish missionary, invented the alphabet. And basically, when I say invented, he didn't really invent, he just used Roman alphabet, the alphabet that we use right now, for English and many other languages. So the cool thing about Jingpo language is you won't need to know how to, read another kind of alphabet. You just use English and yeah, just know the language and you'll be able to read easily, like Spanish. So who are the Kachin and where are they from? I just want to highlight that Kachin people are actually disciplined fighters. This is also some highlights from anthropologists back then. So they were known to be disciplined fighters. They have a lot of jungle survival and herbal healing abilities. And we have intricate relations among different clans and tribes. So my last name, Marun, is actually not just my last name or my family name. It's actually the name of my clan that I come from. And there's about a major, 5 clans in Jingpo, people, amongst the Jingpo people. And it includes Marun, Lato, Lapai, and my aunts all married into the different other clans too. So it's really interesting. And we all have a really unique way of addressing each other within the Jingpo community. So it's kind of you can't hide, everyone is known, you will somehow be traced. Everyone will know which family you are from just by knowing your last name, and by just knowing the relationship names that you have for each other. And there's a certain way to address your aunts and your uncles depending on who they married, on your mother's side or your dad's side, and just really just unique system that's set up to identify who exactly you are in the community. And we are craftspersons and artisans. So I'm also donning some, of my cultural wear, and you can see like it's very interesting stuff, like like the patterns that we have here, and then like it's a lot of detail. So this is the back part of it. I don't know if you can see, but yeah, like the stitching and everything, all handmade. Yeah, it's just a lot of talent amongst the Kachin community. And in terms of population, there is an estimated million Kachin people. But again, like this is not an accurate measure because Burma does not really have a consistent way of keeping track of their people in the country. Not really a good census, and things are really messy there. I'm sure you guys know, as a military coup just occurred early this month on February the 1st. So yeah, it's very messy in terms of governance in the country as a whole. And Kachin is just a state that's in the northern part of the country. And more about Kachin people, where we came from. Our ancestors actually originated on the Tibetan plateau. It's believed to be that place, and it lines up really well with our myths and stories that have been passed on through generations. We call it Majoy Shingra, and it's basically like a plain field, and it matches up with like the geographics of the Tibetan plateau as well. So I believe that this is true. And we migrated south into what is now Myanmar, India, and China. But it's just like this, general region, and it just happens to be like divided by the political boundaries now, of like these new emerging countries that occurred and came out after colonialism. And Jingpo people are believed to have migrated, or Kachin people more generally are believed to have migrated just recently in the 1400s to 1500s. And in terms of religion, so people back then worshipped spirits called nuts. It's sort of like nature spirits. And there was a lot of ancestor worship as well. But in the 1860s, due to colonialism, British and US missionaries came in and they got to share their faith. And so many converted to Baptist and Protestant faith. So I am a Baptist myself, and 99% of Kachin people actually identify themselves as Christians. And they're actually not the only tribe within the country that has done this. Chin people are another kind of people within Burma in another state that also experiences missionary work, and so did Karen people in the bottom part of the country. So many of the main ethnic minorities within Burma are predominantly Christians because of this. And yeah, it's just, it sets us up also in a kind of bad image when it comes to like the public Burmese, because Burma is predominantly Buddhist, and so these ethnic minorities are Christians. So there's like a clash with ethnic identity and religion there. And this is what we call the Minao Shidung. It's our cultural totem pole, you could call it, I guess. And this is used in festivals where we dance around it. Just like I explained how we had like the natural spirit worshiping and stuff like that, it comes from that. But like many kind of pagan rituals that have become Christianized, like we have like more of a Christian symbolism surrounding this now, like with the birds, the moon, the stars, and all the symbols that are attached in there. So when we dance around the totem pole, we think it's like, oh, a celebration, for all the things that God has done for us now. It's like re-Christianized, it's not about like spirit worshiping anymore or ancestor worship. And so just to go a little bit briefly over the colonial history, because Kachin people are positioned in the borderland near China, this largely kept them out of the sphere of Burman influence back then, before British people or anyone came. And even when the British came, Kachin traditional chiefs called Duwas actually ruled over their lands under the British administration. And it wasn't until Burma became a country and got its independence, and like that, all the civil war kind of started out. There was this really important piece of like a constitution, you could say. It was an agreement, actually, Penglong Agreement of 1947. And that was the document that sort of has set up the entire country for failure now, just because that has never been fulfilled. The Panglong Agreement is a document that Kachin people and many other ethnic minorities in the country signed on to, so that they would be able to achieve a Burma union. You know, they could have their own independent states when independence would be given, but that to this day has unfortunately not been fulfilled, which is why Burma is actually enduring one of the longest running civil wars in the world since 1948. Yeah. And so I just wanted to show this textbook picture also that was showing, you know, what Burma actually looked like before it became Burma. So if it, you know, the Panglong Agreement actually went through, who knows? Kachin could have been its own country, maybe. Shan State could have been its own country. Chin and Karenni could have been its own country too. And yeah, the actual country, Burma, that the British people ruled over is what you see in pink. But because of the Panglong Agreement, all these other groups came in, united, thinking that they would be getting independence, but unfortunately got dominated over by the Burmese people. And so I just want to go into the issues now too that have resulted from this broken document agreement, that, you know, because of the war, there have been more than 100,000 internally displaced persons due to this conflict, and bride trafficking to China of Kachin women is an issue. And Kachin land is actually a land that's so rich in resources. So, you know, there's a lot of extraction going on by Burma and China. There's this project called the Midstone Dam construction, where we have a main source of river that flows into Kachin state too. And there's a dam being constructed on that, which is really detrimental for the agricultural jobs of the people there, because you know, it just disrupts the flow from north to south or south to north. And Kachin land is very rich, that it actually supplies about 98% of the entire world's jade. And that is largely taken up by China and Burma, and it even goes straight into the Burma army's pockets. And it finances these ethnic conflicts even further. Kachin ministers have also received threats from Chinese government officials to not speak out about the injustices that are happening within the country, which is an issue as well. And so here's a picture of internally displaced persons. I went to visit them actually 2 years ago just to see what their living conditions were like. And it was really heartbreaking, to be honest. But I'm glad that I went there and got to expose myself to these kind of conditions, because it really brought the reality to me that, you know, this is what my people are going through, and more needs to be done advocacy-wise and just more in the international arena. Yeah, some pictures of children eating. Yeah, and they've been displaced for over 10 years now, so that's crazy. Education is not readily available to everyone. Some camps may be lucky enough to have schools for children, but not all of them do. So thank you very much. I open the floor to questions now.
Yeah. So I think we'll have Mariela speak as well, and then we'll have questioning opened for everyone. So thank you. I know we started about 20 minutes behind, so yeah, so thank you for everyone. But yeah, we look forward to having questioning, and I'm sure there will be, and I'm sure with everything going on right now, that I'm one of the many people here wanting to talk to you about the current events going on. And I'll just mention that we did have a Burmese language class that was canceled due to the events there, the loss of internet for the teacher for that. But yeah, thank you. So let's have Mariela now, and then we'll open up to questions from everyone.
Well, hello, good night. Thank you for the invitation. Can you put the next one, Ryan? I don't know why I am. Well, my name is Mariela. I'm from Mexico, and I am teaching Spanish classes at GLM. And I want to start this conversation asking why Spanish? And first of all, because talking with Latinos is great. Well, I'm just saying. But the second one is because the US Latinos represents about 16% of the population. And in terms of public policy, there is a lot to do to promoting the Spanish language in the US. For example, in countries like Ireland, the government actively promotes the preservation of native language among their population, and this leads to a bilingual country. So I think it's very important to spread the message about how powerful can be to learn a language. So now, next, Ryan, please. About classes, the mission of GLN is to fix the world by promoting communication across different languages. And I think our classes are more than a process of memorization of the grammatical rules. I think our classes are an opportunity to analyze the realities in other countries. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to promote the analysis based on the superiority of the US in comparison with other countries, no. I look for classes to go deeper with practical materials. For example, this weekend I watched Hamilton, the musical. And I'm dying to analyze how important was the role of Washington for the transition of power in the US. What was his message? What happened in Latin America at the same time? And I think these kind of topics can be very interesting to learn more about through these historical facts. So I love to do that kind of classes. Next, please. Well, one of the things that I love about teaching is the opportunity to develop empathy among students about different issues in the world. In my classes, I usually talk about indigenous peoples because it was my main research topic during the last 5 years in my PhD. And through these topics, I'm interested to reflect and discuss what is happening with this population that still lives in various parts in America and in Latin America. But most importantly, how we can relate and support and foster empathy with this population that lives among our cities and our countries. I think that is crucial for me. Next, please. With the pandemic still ongoing, it's very important to build bridges, not walls. Technically, technology, it's an excellent tool to connect right now. And during the last course, I could observe through my students from different states in the US that was great just to learn more about what others are doing in this pandemic, how we can connect with others, how we can connect with the difference, with the diversity, even here in the US. So for me, it's important to build connection and to relate to others that lives in various parts in the country and in other countries around the world. Next, please. Next. I want to talk about the challenges with our classes and how we tend to solve it. First, how we can make the irrelevant relevant. Well, I think classes, even language classes, are and should be relevant, always relevant. Language classes give to students a new vision of the world around them. In my classes, I usually talk about all Latin American countries because Spanish is not just spoken in Mexico. We learned today in the trivia that Spanish is spoken in at least 20 countries. So I usually talk about all these countries, and with the classes that you can take at GLNet can give you the possibility to better understand various realities and understand other perspectives. And I think that is great. Next, please. I think we are in the right one. Second, second, I think one of the challenges is how can a student make time to learn a new language in the current era of multitasking. All the people is doing 3 or 4 activities at the same time. So the challenge for teachers as us is to make classes very interesting, very creative, very personal, and especially very dynamic to keep students' attention, and at the same time dive deep into one or several topics that are important right now. So my answer to approach this is playing, because I think adult education can be fun, but at the same time can be reflective. And the last thing, I think to meet the GLN mission, I think it's very important to build community, to build conscious, and to build the basis to change the world. So don't miss the opportunity of taking language classes. I'm sure this can be a game changer for you. I'm sure. Thank you.
Thanks. I've been fortunate enough to have you substitute a class I was in, and really enjoyed it. So I think now we can open it up to the broader panel and to questions from YPAA. So feel welcome to turn this into a dialogue. And I also would like to give the opportunity to the teachers to also ask questions to each other as well. So anyone can open up now, and if anyone from YPIA would like to kind of step in at this point to also ask some questions, that would be highly welcome. I've done some background as well, so I may have some other questions as well as you get going. So let's open this up to more of a discussion from everyone. Thank you. Great.
I have a question.